We have a humanitarian crisis that must be dealt with right now. We think the funding for shelter and medical care is essential. We have grave concerns on the increased funding of border militarization. There's money for drones, increased surveillance, things that actually have been extremely costly to taxpayers and have not proven any benefit, have actually increased criminal rings along the border. So I think we need to really question that.
It is a given for any reporter or journalist heading to the border. There's a very good chance you will not be getting close contact with the truth, for there are a number of incidents and issues being kept under wraps and away from prying eyes. It makes for a wealth of stories, claims, beliefs, hyperbole. Let's see about getting some straight answers from the ground. Welcome into MidPoint, columnist, author, and commentator from the website Politichicks. And joining us from ground level in Murrieta, California, Dr. Gina Loudon joins us today. Gina, thank you so much for being here.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me, Ed.
Gina, first tell us what took you to Murrieta, because it was a very specific instance that brought you there.
Well, I am a citizen journalist. I believe that it is our duty to go capture these moments and get the truth out to people. So I wanted to interview the people who disagree with my perspective on the issue to see if they had anything to say that maybe would add food for thought to the way I thought of this. To me, this seems like a humanitarian crisis for the United States. And so I really wanted to hold that up against their arguments and see where I landed.
When you first went to Murrieta, when you first got there and started to meet some of the people there, again, we hear reports of gangs being there, MS-13. We hear about militia members that are there. Some very unconfirmed reports have said there's weapons that are involved here at Murrieta. What did you see?
I did see a lot of security, a lot of border patrol, as you might imagine. I didn't see any federal agents that had been discussed. They could have been there because it was quite a wide array, spread across. You could hardly figure out who was who because there were so many on the conservative side saying, we need to talk about things like sovereignty and the health of the United States. And then there were maybe 20 protesters from the other side that were very vocal and very sort of right up in the face of the agents that were standing there.
A lot of the vocalese that you heard from these people, there are some reports that say, quite frankly, it only starts when the cameras get started. Did you see that?
Yeah. One of the things I thought was the most interesting was the brown berets who were there, who of course believe that we should have completely open borders. They think that Mexico actually is entitled to own the United States and people should be able to flow as freely as they want. And one of the interesting things I noticed about the guys there in the brown berets, with the exception of one that I interviewed, is that they wouldn't talk to media and they had their faces covered with scars. My opinion is that if you're there to protest, part of your legitimacy as a protester is being willing to actually show your face and put your name behind your protest. And I noticed instantly that they weren't really willing to do that.
There's a lot of people who will say that, again, they will point to this being a humanitarian crisis, and they will say that the most important thing is the kids that are involved here. You will hear a tremendous amount of critics saying that the kids have been traumatized by what is going on. They watch a lot of this. They hear what is being said about them. Do you get the feeling, after talking to the people there, that they are completely cold to this humanitarian need as some media outlets have painted them? Or indeed, are the people there part of this, wondering that we should be able to take care of the humanitarian and take care of America at the same time?
No, I absolutely do not see any sort of incompassion, if you will, among the protesters there who feel like this is a humanitarian crisis. This is a humanitarian crisis for the Border Patrol, who are already contracting all sorts of diseases, including a disease, treatment-resistant strain of tuberculosis, including scabies, including some of the tropical diseases. I, in fact, interviewed a nurse on my own show, and she told me she's been a part of many of these imported diseases that are very often resistant to our Western medical practices. The things that we do to take care of those diseases likely will not work on all of these. So what about the legal immigrant children? What about the children who are here by birthright? What about legal citizens in the United States who are going to suffer tremendously because, frankly, we can't handle this? You can only be as humanitarian as any charity can tell you as your purse strings will afford. California is one of the most broke places in the entire country, the last place that needs to absorb hundreds of thousands of ill immigrants is California. It makes absolutely no sense.
Gina, were you able to see any evidence whatsoever of the scabies, the disease that we hear? There have been some reports, and there was certainly one that was on one of the cable networks that talked about how children were coming off buses or they were being treated, and you could see lice basically crawling on their face, and that was what they were using. But we're still having a problem actually getting real confirmation of any of this. So did you see evidence of this?
No, they drive the buses into a secured area behind Border Patrol, so they don't let media anywhere near the children, mostly for health purposes. The bus drivers, all of the Border Patrol, they all have on masks and they all have on gloves, and so that is pretty evidentiary that they are thinking that there's something pretty contagious going on. Many things very contagious. Also, the nurse that I interviewed said she had personally seen and confirmed medical records that of some of the cases of Border Patrol being infected already. And of course, the Border Patrol, let's not forget, they're not just guards. They go home to their families at night too, Ed. And so what's happening to their children? Are they having to be quarantined from their own families just so they can try to absorb this incredible injustice that this administration isn't taking care of right now?
We see the pictures, and a lot of times we see the different pictures where there are protesters standing in front of buses and they are blocking their way. However, isn't it fair to say that what is happening right now is simply the Border Patrol, the government is just going to wait these people out in Murrieta and say, look, you guys aren't going to be here forever, and we'll just take them someplace else. We'll go to another state, we'll go to another location, and you can have your protest, and it really isn't making that much of a difference as far as they are concerned.
You're absolutely right. This is exactly what they're doing. In fact, they went ahead and dropped that bus full at Chula Vista, which is another neighboring city right where I am. And so now, and these children are all quarantined for confirmed diseases. There are 40 of them. I can't say that they're all children, I'm sorry. These people are already confirmed to have some very communicable diseases, so that they are in full quarantine and they are in Chula Vista. So yes, they're just taking them to other parts of California. That's true. The folks of Murrieta are trying to make a stand and trying to encourage others to do the same and hope that they'll follow suit, because their blockades are working so far.
Is the bigger concern here, certainly from the people in Murrieta, and again, you've only had a chance to speak to a small group here, but that, and this is again what we hear from many people on the ground, that these are the folks who believe their communities are being overrun. They simply don't have the money. It is not a matter of we don't want to be able to help somebody, but where do we get the money? Why isn't the government helping us? Why should we be the ones that are overrun and the ones that have to pay for all of this? And I'm talking about paying financially, but also paying emotionally. Is that what you're getting from a lot of the folks here on the ground?
Well, I ran into one lady who had lost a child because one of the people who came here illegally, and the government obviously wasn't following up. Anyway, drunk driving and hit her car and killed her child. I've met many people who've endured hardships from this illegal crisis happening in our country. And so she's not alone. I know a lady who lost a brother. I know another lady who lost a child. So this is the voice of the people on the ground saying, look, we want to help people, but this isn't humanitarian for anyone. If they come here and they're not followed and they're let go, which you know is happening, they check them in basically and they turn them loose in the community, and on their honor, they're supposed to check back in. We all know that's probably not going to happen, especially if they're ill, and then we can't help anybody. You know, if we're all sick, we can't help anybody.
Have you seen any evidence of any of the refugees or the immigrants, however you want to put it here, being released into the recognizance or into the custody of others here in the community or outside of the community?
Oh, absolutely. I'm hearing from a lot of people on the ground that they've had different experiences with these folks. And I know that one of them heard a story about them being paid $5,000. The people who get them here safely are paid $5,000 per child. This is a kind of human trafficking, let's not forget.
That's the point I think that we're all missing here. Do you have people on the ground talking about this being nothing more than just an illegal trafficking operation that certain people are taking advantage of because of the policies of the United States?
It is, and this is a very lucrative job to have right now in some of these countries where they're taking massive advantage of these people to basically to get these people here. About 5,000 a person, as I said, is quite a lot of money, especially in a country like that. And so it's quite corrupt. And the reason, what no one can figure out here, unless you just think it's all Cloward Pivens, which I think is a pretty legitimate logic there, but what nobody can figure out is what is our United States government doing to protect people in this situation? Even just our border patrol, start with them, but even the people on the ground there, some of them were wearing masks because they were worried about being contaminated just being there at the border patrol station.
Can you tell me in 15 seconds one site that really made an impact on you?
I think it was the Brown Berets and how violent they were. They gave me misogynistic profanities the entire time I was trying to talk to them, and told me that maybe their heart wasn't 100% about compassion or humanitarian purposes, if you will.
Dr. Gina Loudon from Politichicks and much more. Gina, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. Please stay safe, and we will talk with you again soon.
Thank you, Ed.
All right, that is on the ground from Murrieta, California, where the protests still go on, and people are still wondering, many of them are still wondering where their government is in helping to make a difference and solve the situation. We'll return on MidPoint right here on the Newsmax TV network.